Guten Tag, hello fourth years, and here is our lesson for today. We're actually starting a new chapter from the book, and our title today is going to be Zu Hause. Unser heutiges Datum ist natürlich Donnerstag, den 7. Mai. What are we going to be learning today? Well, it is just really some revision of stuff that you should know, because it's stuff that has been covered before. And the two key points we're looking at are rooms in the house and the present tense of irregular verbs. So hopefully you are fully familiar with all those, but it's always a good opportunity for us to revisit some stuff and refresh our memories. So here we go. Los geht's. Und wir fangen doch an. Hier ist mein Haus. Ja, ist schön, ne? Ich habe einen schönen Garten. Und das ist mein Haus. Okay, und in meinem Haus, was habe ich? Ich habe viele Zimmer. Okay, we're going to go through all the rooms, and these two you may not quite describe as rooms, but broadly speaking, all the rooms of the house, and remind ourselves of what they are in German. You should know what they are already. First question is, though, why have I put these two together on the same page? Well, that will become obvious a little bit later. So, what are these words? Wie heißt das auf Deutsch? Was ist das hier? Das ist der Flur. You might not have known that word. You might not have seen that before. Der Flur. But this one, surely you know, and I've only just mentioned it as well. Was ist das? Das ist der Garten. Der Garten, natürlich. Der Garten. Okay. Next page. Now, here on this page, I've put 5 of my lovely rooms from my house. Why have I put these 5 together? Let's see. Wie heißt das auf Deutsch? Das hier ist das Arbeitszimmer. Might again be a new word for you, possibly, but I'm sure you can work it out what it means, even if you haven't seen that word before. Das Arbeitszimmer. Da bin ich jetzt. Was ist das hier? Das ist hier das Esszimmer. Das Esszimmer. Wo wir essen, natürlich. Und hier, was ist das? Das ist das Badezimmer. Das Badezimmer. Und was ist das hier? Das ist das Schlafzimmer. Das Schlafzimmer. Und das letzte Zimmer hier, was ist das hier? Das ist das Wohnzimmer. Das Wohnzimmer. Okay, now hopefully it should be clear why I put the previous 2 on the previous page and why I've grouped these 5 together on this page. It is all to do with the gender, of course. All 5 of these words are which gender? They are neuter. They are neuter, and we can tell that because they all start with das. And why do they all start with das? Well, they all start with das because they all end with the word Zimmer. And Zimmer, das Zimmer, is the German word for room, and it is a neuter word. So we say das Zimmer. And so any word ending in Zimmer is also going to be das, because that's the way it works in German. So das Schlafzimmer, das Wohnzimmer, das Badezimmer, das Esszimmer. And you can see how the words are worked out. Literally, this is the workroom, we'd call it the study. The eating room, we call it the dining room. The bathroom, the sleeping room in German, but we call it the bedroom. And the living room, or lounge, whatever you want to call it, the living room, das Wohnzimmer. So these are all neuter. The previous slide, they were masculine. Der Garten und der Flur. What on earth could be coming onto the next page? Yep, you've guessed it. It is the feminine rooms of the house. I've got just 2 for you here. And we have, wie heißt das auf Deutsch? Das ist hier die Küche. Die Küche is the kitchen. Be careful. It's not a cake. It's not a church. It's a kitchen. Die Küche. And this one here, das ist die Garage. Die Garage. The garage, of course. Okay, so we have various words for different rooms in the house in German, and some are masculine, some are feminine, and some are neuter. That's all straightforward. Now, what have we got here? We've got our old friend in. Now, we looked at the word in very recently. Can you remember what we said? Because when in is followed by a noun, as it very often will be, and you're describing the position where someone or something is, what do we need to remember? Well, if that noun is a masculine word, so normally it's der, like der Garten, if you want to say in the garden, then that word der is going to change, and it's going to change to in dem. In dem. So you would say in dem Garten. But if you wanted to, you could abbreviate that, you could shorten it just to im. Entirely up to you. So I'm in the garden, ich bin in dem Garten, or ich bin im Garten. Both are possible. It's your choice. What about a neuter word, like all of those 5 words ending in Zimmer? What if you wanted to say you were in any of those rooms? Well, if you can remember from when we looked at in before, it is exactly the same as for a masculine noun. So for all of the nouns we've seen so far, obviously there's still feminine to come, if you are saying you are in the room, you say in dem or you say in, irrespective of whether it's a der word or a das word normally. You just say in dem, or if you want to, shorten it to im, in the. However, obviously the feminine ones will be slightly different. They're not all going to follow the same pattern. So those D words like die Küche, die Garage, a little bit bizarrely, that D word is going to change to, can you remember? It's actually going to change to der, in der. So ich bin in der Garage. So that's the slightly odd one, but for most of them, it's going to be in dem or im. So let's put that into practice. And if I wanted to say that I am here in this beautiful looking garden here, how would I say I am in the garden? In German? Well, I've given you the first two words for free. Ich bin im Garten. Ich bin im Garten. You could, of course, equally as well say ich bin in dem Garten if you wanted to. But if you wanted to make it a bit shorter, ich bin im Garten. I am in the garden. What about my beautiful living room with views across the mountains? How would I say I am in the living room? I would say ich bin im Wohnzimmer. Ich bin im Wohnzimmer. I'm in the living room. Or, of course, you could say ich bin in dem Wohnzimmer. And for here, I'm in the kitchen. What would you say? This is one to be careful with. You would say ich bin in der Küche. Ich bin in der Küche. I am in the kitchen. Because a feminine noun describing position after in, it changes to der, in der Küche. Okay, so we need to know these particular phrases, the different words for different rooms of the house, and how we would say you are in those particular rooms of the house, masculine, neuter, and feminine. That's one thing. Another thing that we're going to look at today, as I said at the beginning, was irregular verbs in the present tense. Here I have just 2 verbs. One of them is regular, one of them is irregular. Spielen is a verb we know so well. What does it mean? It means to play. Is it regular or irregular? It is regular, of course. So it's a regular verb, it follows the regular pattern, and lots of other verbs follow this pattern. So if I wanted to know how to say I play, I would of course say ich. What would I say after that? I would say ich spiele. Ich spiele. Please note the I and the E and the correct order of those 2 letters. But the key point here is that it ends with the letter E. Ich spiele. The do form is going to end in st, still with IE though, and it's du spielst. And the sie, s or man, I've only written or sie just for space, is going to end in just the letter T, no S at the end. Oder sie, oder es, oder man spielt. He, she, it, or one plays. Now, schlafen over here means to sleep. But this is an irregular verb. And this is just an illustration of what an irregular verb looks like. And if I showed you the ich form, if you look at that carefully, you'll say, well, actually, that form isn't irregular. And irregular verbs aren't irregular in the ich form. That's the perfectly normal pattern as we have the spielen. I've taken off the en and I've added the e. Ich schlafe, just like ich spiele. But it's in the du and the sie, s forms that the irregular verbs become irregular. So the st ending we would expect, we still have that. But what has happened is For this particular verb, we've added an umlaut on that A. So we've gone from ich schlafe to du schläfst. Du schläfst. And in the er sie es form, again, the ending is what we would expect. It's the letter T. But again, for this verb, the umlaut has been added on the A. Er schläft, he sleeps or is sleeping. Sie schläft, she is sleeping or she sleeps. And es schläft and man schläft and so on. So there are verbs that are irregular in the present tense, and you've seen them before, but the point to note is they are only irregular in the du and the er sie es forms. I haven't given the plural forms, the wir, the ihr, the sie, the sie. They would be totally normal and regular. Wir schlafen, ihr schlaft, sie schlafen, sie schlafen. It's just these two forms that are irregular, and the irregularity is in the vowel of the stem. Something will change. It may be that it adds an umlaut, it may be the vowel changes, it may be it adds a vowel or something like that, but the endings are still the same. Let's just have a look at a few more irregular verbs as some examples. I've taken them straight from the book. And here they've got essen, a verb we all know. Ich esse, I eat, but notice it goes to du isst, and er sie es isst. That changes to an I. Still the regular endings, just not an extra S there, because having three S's would be silly, but it still ends in ST, that still ends in T. There's schlafen, we've just looked at. Lesen, another one you know. Ich lese, I read. But in the du form, it adds an I, du liest. Again, don't need to add an additional S, we've already got an S in the stem. And er sie es liest. And they've added arbeiten on here to work, because this isn't technically irregular, because there is no change in the vowel in the stem. But what's different is, because the stem ends in a T, ich arbeite, add an E. If I just added an ST, as I'd be expected to, having TST would be a bit of a mouthful. Du arbeitst. So we put an E in just to make it easy to say du arbeitest. And similarly, we wouldn't want two T's right next to each other. So er sie es arbeitet. So that's true for any verb where the stem, the bit that is what you get when you've got rid of the EN, ends in a T, or indeed if it ends in a D, we'll keep that E in place. Okay, so that's all the instruction you should need for today's lesson. The tasks will be there for you on Firefly for you to work on. Just before we finish, though, I wanted to show something. Now, this is not something we're going to be doing for today's lesson, but I wanted you to be aware. We have in the past, and we will again, I'm sure, been doing some tasks from the Pearson Active Learn website. And remember, we need to go on to Pearson Active Learn, not Pearson Active Primary, or whatever it's called. We need to go on the right one. I just wanted to point out to you, they have put up a message, which you can see at the bottom of the screen here, that they're changing the login. As of the 16th of May, they're going to be updating their new login page. That's very exciting, I know. But the reason for showing you this is that when you first log in after the 16th of May, you will need to re-enter your username and password. So they suggest you note them down now. So if I was to click on login, they tell you here how you can check your password. If I was to click on login, we get to this particular Pearson login page, and this is where you know that you're on the right one and you're not on the primary one, because it doesn't say primary here. If, like me, you have got your computer at home to keep and store your password and username, then it will come up like that, and I know if I want to sign in, I'll just click sign in, off I go. But if you have got it stored on the website, if you click that show button, then it will show you what your password is. You might want to make a note of that now, because if you have got it stored like I have, after the 16th of May, it will not be stored because they're changing this page. So write it down now if you want to, and then you'll be able to still log in. If you try to log in at some point in the future after the 16th of May and you cannot find your password anywhere, don't worry. There is this link, of course, if you've forgotten your username or password. But to save time and effort and anxiety, you might just want to have a check now, make a note of it in a safe place so that you can then restore it after the 16th of May. Okay, I just wanted to tell you that and maybe get you to do that very quickly now, anytime up till the 16th of May, to avoid a little bit of heartache and trouble. Right, we'll meet up again in Teams later. Off you go with the work now. Good luck, viel Glück und bis später. Tschüss!